Welcome to the Relationship Recovery Podcast, hosted by Jessica Knight, a certified life coach who specializes in narcissistic and emotional abuse. This podcast is intended to help you identify manipulative and abusive behavior, set boundaries with yourself and others, and heal the relationship with yourself so you can learn to love in a healthy way.
Hello and welcome back. Thank you so much for being here, as always. Today, I have one of my favorite people, Kind Mama Coaching. Her name is Tessa, and she joins us again to talk about the intricacies of co-parenting with a high conflict person. And we start with a discussion about her new book, one that she describes very well, but that also I have so much love for the idea behind. So we start with that, and then we go into the ins and outs of sharing custody, sharing parenting time, and the child experience of going back and forth, and some of the things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. Often we have episodes that are in more of these big topic areas of how to deal with this giant issue, what is the strategy mindset for this. But with this episode, we talk more about the day-to-day, the things people are really dealing with, as well as how to begin to talk about two homes with your kid. I highly recommend looking into Tessa at Kind Mama Coaching on all platforms. Her links, as well as a link to her book, will be in the show notes. And just remember that this journey is hard, it's complex, but you have the support of people like me, people like Tessa, to really be there and who understand and who want you and your kids to be as happy and as successful as possible. As always, you can find me at emotionalabusecoach.com, at emotionalabusecoach on Instagram and TikTok, and you can email me at jessica@jessicaknightcoaching.com. Hi, Tessa. Thank you so much for joining me again.
Hi, Jessica. Thank you so much for having me on.
For those who haven't listened to your other episodes, which they should, and I'll put them in the show notes, can you tell us who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So my name is Tessa Noel. I am a certified divorce coach and co-parenting specialist. And I am also now a children's book author. I just published my first children's book. And I work one-on-one with clients who are going through separation and divorce. And I'm really passionate about educating parents on how to help their children through the process as well and keep them out of the conflict of divorce and separation.
I love that you just wrote a children's book. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So I wrote a book. It's called Stella's Two Homes. I wrote it because when I went through my divorce almost 7 years ago now, my kids were 10 months old and 2 years old. And I wanted a book kind of just to so little, right? I wanted a book that kind of just introduced the topic of two homes, right? And made it a little bit more comfortable, and then kind of a way for me to talk about divorce or separation or them having to go between homes. So I went to the library and I looked in this special section of special issues for children's books. And I found a book called Dinosaur's Divorce. It was written in the 80s. It's got some really cool illustrations, but it also had a lot of things that I did not want my children to know about. It defined, I have it right in front of me. It defined divorce as divorce takes place between mothers and fathers. You are not to blame if your parents get divorced. And that's very specific.
Yeah.
Because what if it's not a mother and a father? What if it's not, I don't know, what if your situation is different? And so I was like, wow, I really want a not so specific book for my young children, right? And this Dinosaur's Divorce book even has a appendix in the beginning, and it defines certain words like visiting rights, alimony, step parent, separation agreement, judge, court. I don't know about you, but my kids don't know I've ever set foot in a courtroom. I don't want them to know, maybe until they're adults. I don't want them to ask me about child support or alimony because these aren't issues that they should be concerned about, because children are naturally inquisitive and they're going to ask follow-up questions, right? what's this? What does this mean? So I was like, that book is not appropriate for my family. I think somewhere else in the book, it also says, your parents got divorced because they don't love each other. I'm misquoting it, I'm sure, but it says something like that. And I'm like, no.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Parents divorce when they don't love each other or can't get along together anymore. And I was still in love with my husband when he left. So that also wasn't appropriate. And then I didn't want a follow-up question to be, well, Mom, is Dad going to stop loving me, or are you going to stop loving me? So I just wanted a children's book that kind of just introduced the concept of the child going to two separate homes, right? Yeah. And we know that children, especially young children, identify as both parents, right? They're not completely finished developing their own identity apart from their parents. So I wanted to make sure that children saw both homes in a positive light. So in my book, the main character, I named her after my daughter, Stella. Stella goes between two homes, but one of her homes is her mom's house, and her mom is a fairy, and they mix potions and have magical, fun little adventures they go on. And then her other parent is a mermaid, and they also go on beautiful, whimsical, fun adventures. So overall, it's a whimsical, fun, magical book that children would want to read anyways, but it also happens to introduce the topic of divorce or separation in the introduction of the two homes, one family concept. So I also didn't put the word divorce in this book because I wanted parents who aren't divorced, who are maybe just separated, never got married, to feel included in that as well. But the whole basis of me writing that book was as a co-parenting specialist, I'm passionate about keeping the kids out of the conflict, right? A lot of times, especially in the beginning of a divorce or separation, there's going to be a lot of conflict. And it's really important for us to understand that young children are not capable of coping with unsettling details of divorce or able to cope with some of the conflict of the divorce. I actually came up with a principle that I use to describe to my clients what they need to keep in mind when co-parenting, and it's called the Santa Claus principle. Basically, in co-parenting, when your children are still young enough to believe in Santa, right? They're at that age range. You can't put a specific age on it because children develop differently. But as long as they're young enough to believe in Santa, it's important to remember that they will often see their other parent through a similar magical lens. And this is going to fade naturally as they get older, especially if you're co-parenting with a high conflict co-parent, which we did our whole podcast on last time.
Yeah.
They're going to figure it out, but it's not your job to ruin the magic for them. They're going to eventually grow older, be more mature, and figuring out. But because they, especially young children, identify with both parents, right? They hear your dad is a cheater or they hear your mom is a liar. They're hearing you are a cheater or you are a liar because they haven't developed their own identity separate from their parent. So it's really important that, and that's why I wrote this book, that it's both homes look whimsical and beautiful and are important. And I really stress the two homes, one family concept, and that the child is made up of both parents, right? Because they want to feel that both relationships are important. Even though you, me, you, anybody may not have that view of the person they created a child with anymore. It's important that that child is able to have that magical view while they still can, even though it's going to fade eventually, most likely. And then I included a discussion question at the end of the book. So it's really interactive. And
Thank you for sharing so much about it. I think I love that it's like relatable and that they're like each home is different, but they're both still magical.
They're both magical.
Yeah. Like it My daughter loves Disney. So when you said it, it was like, okay, we're going to like Ariel's grotto, and then we're going over here,
Yes.
to like Tinkerbell.
Yeah.
Like,
And
they're
and
different.
when you're reading the book, yes.
Yeah.
The illustrations are amazing too. So when you're reading the book, it is like a whimsical little adventure. And it is beautiful and at both homes.
Yeah.
So, and then at the end of the book, Stella, there's a part I'm just going to read for you. It says, "When I miss mom or dad, I know what to do. I look in the mirror and see them there too." And so she's standing there and seeing both of her parents in the mirror. And I think that's important too, because children don't want to have to feel like they have to pick one parent over the other. Right.
Right.
So yeah, it's just I used to at bedtime tell my kids bedtime stories and talk about their, a little girl who went between two homes just because I couldn't find a book like this, and until I wrote it. But I would say like, oh, and then mom dropped them off at the beach for their visit with dad, and talked about the mermaid dad's life and how they dive for pearls, and they'd search for sea glass, and they'd watch fireworks on the beach, and had this beautiful relationship with their dad at dad's house. But then also at mom's house, they got to do wonderful, magical things as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what is really important especially for the younger kids, is knowing that they're made up of both parents and they're both equally important.
I really appreciate that you touched on the concept too of two homes, but one family, because I think that gets lost a lot of the time. When you were talking about it, it just really made me reflect on how important that is for the child to see that, like, with my mommy and my daddy, we are one family. And there may be other people, that are at daddy's house. There might be other people that are at mommy's house, or maybe mommy's house, includes extended family, and dad's house includes like maybe a new relationship, or
maybe a new, or a new sibling. Right?
Yeah.
How do you talk to your child about a new sibling at that other parent's house, right? Especially if it's kind of uncomfortable for you. And I
actually had to do that. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Well,
so am I.
Yeah. Well, it's a little off topic, but I'm sure it's actually in topic, because the topic is, how do we help our kids, when they are involved in the high conflict divorce process. But in case anyone's listening to this and they're like, oh my God, how did you do that? Like, the cliff notes of that, I didn't know what to do, but
no, we don't know.
Yeah. My kid was very confused. She was 4, and I think she was excited when she was there, and then would express nervousness to me, or maybe didn't. I don't know. I think if I was a kid, I would probably have trouble expressing nerves to the parent that's having the kid. I think it was confusing for her, which is fair, because at 4, I think everything's confusing. And so I actually went to a child social worker to talk to them about ways that I can support Charlotte that didn't necessarily involve the other parent, because I had an idea that he wouldn't agree with what I was hearing. But I was like, I kind of had to figure out how to treat it in my home, knowing that her sister will always be in her life, and that I want her to feel positive about that. And the social worker basically said, like, do your best to validate her and help her understand that, like, her feelings are completely valid no matter what they are, and that they might shift and change every day. And that's also valid. And she encouraged me to draw pictures with Charlotte of different homes and like different iterations of people. And we have a cat and a dog. And so we were drawing, like, we would add them in at times. And, Charlotte would draw my mom in some pictures, and then she would draw some of her dad and his new wife and the sister. And this is like when she's 4. So it's all little tiny stick figures, but it started to help Charlotte shape who her family is.
Yes.
And I think that, like, I had to put any feelings I had about, like, oof, this is rough. Of course I wanted to have a baby, maybe not with him, but I wanted to have a baby. I wanted to give her first sibling, but this is where we are. Right. And it's okay. And like, I'm actually pretty okay with where it is now, because I was not in a place to give her a sibling for a while, just because I'm of parenting. But it's like that idea of like that that family can be whatever she wants it to be. And now she actually draws friends in too all the time. So if she's drawing her family, she'll add friends from school that she's known for a
That's
very long
great.
time.
Yeah.
Sees them like her sister or like my best friend his name is Dave and he's in New York, but she calls him Uncle Dave. And it's because Dave's always been there. He's been there as long as my brothers have been.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I know that was a little tangent,
Well,
but I know my
no,
audience.
it's great because it's a perfect example of how you supported your child through that giant change. Because even good things like a new baby or a move to a new house, these are big giant changes during a very delicate developmental stage of your child's life, right?
Mhm.
And they have the potential to impact that development. And where that comes out is the behavior, like you said, right? So
Mhm.
children communicate through behavior. And if you do notice something, is off, like this, your child is feeling dysregulated because of this big giant change, you need to figure out how to support them, what tools you need to get to support them through this change. And I mean, us as mothers, we're so intuitive and so in tune with what our children are experiencing. Like for me, it's right away, like, whoa, what's going on, right? And my children they were so little when we divorced, 10 months and 2 years. So I didn't really see, and their dad was out of the house traveling a lot anyways. So it wasn't a big difference. We hadn't moved yet. But then when my co-parent moved to a different state, that when they were, I think 4 and 6, that was something that,
Mhm.
caused these behavioral changes, behavioral issues that, and that's just them letting us know, hey, I need help. Right.
Yeah.
And that's how I knew okay, I got to go get my kids in therapy now.
Right.
Got to go figure this out. Got to find a tool to help them. Right. But in a, uh, high conflict co-parenting relationship, you get these things where you're constantly being given opportunities to learn and grow
Mhm.
with your
Yeah.
child.
Yeah.
And so there are things that co-parents will either intentionally or unintentionally do that then your child's coming to you with the behavior. You have to kind of figure it out, like what's going on here. And I have kind of outlined some of these co-parenting
Mhm.
issues that can do that. And then I've got examples of what to do if your child is coming home from the other parent's house,
Yeah, because
saying these things or doing these
what we
things.
typically see is that dysregulation is we see them dysregulated and we
Mm-hmm.
see them, act it's
Mm-hmm.
behavioral. And then we're trying to like look at the behavior and figure out what's going on because usually they don't say anything or they'll say a lot of things that
Mm-hmm.
don't necessarily make sense. We don't want to interrogate them and it's hard to figure it
Right.
out. But I guess like that's usually the sign that like the high conflict co-parent is involving the kids in things they shouldn't necessarily be involved in.
In adult matters.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. In adult matters. And they should absolutely be kept out of that. And again, their little brains, they shouldn't be involved even if they were young adults. Right. But they don't know how to cope. They can't. Their brains are not fully developed to cope with the adult matters or be thrown into the conflict or the messiness of the divorce. Something that I see a lot, in my coaching practice is parents who will ask their children to spy. And they don't say, hey, I need you to spy on my mom, on your mom, right? They don't come out and say that, but they'll ask questions, right? So they're attempting to obtain information about the other parent. Who does your mom date? Or did your mom buy a new TV? Can you find out for me? Or is your mom asking you to ask me that? Right. And that's a co-parenting game I call the I Spy game. But
Mm-hmm.
this can cause what's called a loyalty bind in your child, where your child feels obligated to side with one parent or the other. And your child should never be asked to choose between parents.
Yeah.
So what you can do if your child is saying, oh, dad's asking me if you did this or whatever, you have to address it directly with your co-parent, unfortunately. Send
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
a talking parents message and say, hey, our daughter came home saying that you are asking her these questions. And then you're going to state a boundary, right?
Mhm.
You can't involve our children in adult matters. We're going to have to talk to the therapist about this, or just let them know the implications. Like, this is not okay. If you need information, ask me directly. And then you can even teach your child a script, right? Just like
Yeah.
a one sentence. If your dad asks you questions about me, it's okay for you to say, I don't want to talk to you about that. Let's talk about something else, right?
Yeah.
Or mom says it's okay to not answer questions about her, right? Just to like empower them with the words or the boundaries, and they're going to be able to practice it because most likely your co-parent's not going to listen to you the first time. If they're a high conflict or have narcissistic tendencies, they're not going to listen to you. They're going to continue doing it. And that's why, again, another really important factor of this, you really should have your children in therapy if you are dealing with a high conflict co-parent, because
Yeah.
there are lots of issues that maybe your co-parent is not going to listen to you about it, but they will listen to the therapist.
Yeah.
Right.
And
if you
like
can specifically say to the therapist, this is the behavior my child is exhibiting. This is why, they're being asked to spy at dad's house. And then the therapist will be like, okay, let's not do that anymore, obviously. Right. And what were you going to say?
Yeah. And also encouraging the child to speak to the therapist about the thing that's coming up for them.
Mm-hmm.
My child's therapist will like role play with her, which I think is really helpful. She'll be like, I'll be, even like if she's talking about like a friend thing, she'll be like, I'll be this, or I'll be that. And recently Charlotte wanted to set a boundary, and she actually asked me to write it down, like kind of write it down for her so that she could remember what to say. But I think it's so helpful and very empowering, because they're learning boundaries in school, and it's like, emotionally
they even have little songs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you heard the little
well,
boundary?
we're on opposite coasts. So probably different songs. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that is something they're being taught in schools, and that's super important. Mm-hmm.
So then they can use it there. And one thing that I noticed that my child started to do is in school, they're learning about thought bubbles. It's like, well, that thought should have stayed in your thought bubble, and not have come out. And so Charlotte's able to notice that, which I think is like really great. Like but she'll say it to me all the time about other people. Like she'll be like, this friend at school said this, and I think that should have stayed in their thought bubble and not have come out of their mouth, and like, so like using their language too can be so helpful with those boundaries of like, they'll take their language and help them figure out that boundary, even to realize like, like you said, mommy said it's okay if I don't talk about mommy here. Like, it's okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I've had to do that. My daughter, when she was in second grade, had this little boy that was pursuing her, and it was awkward and it was embarrassing. And he would like try to hold her hand on the playground, embarrass her in front of all her friends. And I said, you can tell that boy that your mom said that you are not allowed to have a boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And that he's not allowed to hold your hand, and that your mom said, and that's okay. And that kind of empowered her to be like, sorry, not my fault. My mom said that I can't. Right. And so that's something too that I'm like, I want you to know you're allowed to do this. I said it's okay.
Yeah.
And that's something you can do with your children too. You're allowed to say, I don't like it when you ask me questions about mommy. It makes me feel yucky. And she says I don't have to answer questions like that. Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I'm just kind of like, I of course am taking notes, and I just look down, and I don't want to forget to ask this about the two homes, about bringing items to the two homes, because what's very typical and that I see in almost every case, that I work with or I'm a part of, is that there's one home where you can bring anything to and it's fine. There's one home where it is quicksand and you'll never see those items again because they
never
get
again
into the earth. Yeah. And then you'll
never again
see them. Or you'll be
especially
chastised, even if you have a vagina. You'll still be chastised because you sent an item, and like, how dare you? And it's a lot because it's like, these are the child's things and they want
Yes.
things. And,
Yes.
and it's definitely very hard. And, I mean, I'm at the point, if that my daughter really wants to bring something, I'll just purchase a double, or if she leaves it, she leaves it. It's fine. But if it's like a book or something that I know she loves, I make the mom decision about it. If it's a Barbie doll, it's fine. What do you tell parents to do or how to think about it?
So for the most part, I would say what's at mom stays at mom.
Okay.
What's at dad stays at dad's. But there are some things like maybe a stuffy that they can't go to sleep without. And it's hard because that child wants to bring their comfort animal to the other parent's house, but also you run the risk of losing it and not having it at your house.
Mm-hmm.
I would say in situations like that, absolutely get a double. Absolutely get a double because, there are super important things. Other things like a child's inhaler, get a double because you cannot be without that item.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it just depends. It's on a case to case basis. Like, do you know how many hoodies?
Yeah. That you'll never see again.
I've sent to the other house and they just literally never come back. So then I just started making like a conscious decision of on the days that they go to dad's, I'm not going to dress them in rags, but I'm definitely not going to put them in the brand new $30 sweatshirt I just brought them or the name brand Nikes. I'm not because if those things don't come back, then I'm kind of out of that money and also mad at myself. Right. So, and I don't want to reach out to the other parent and be like, hey, where are those brand new shoes I just bought for her? Because that just creates more of an issue. So that I just don't send them with the expensive clothes. I have had to buy over and over and over and over again, new hoodies, new shoes. I remember one time it was Sunday night. Okay. Sunday night. I got the kids home. It was late. We had school in the morning and my son had ripped his backpack and I got that news as they were being dropped off. Oh, by the way, our son doesn't have a backpack for school tomorrow. It was like 7:30 at night.
Yeah.
And I had to take the kids, put them in the minivan, drive to Walmart, get a new backpack so that my son. Yeah. So situations like that, it's just so hard. So hard.
But it's still like,
don't ever put your co-parent not.
You just got to do it. Yeah. It's still just like that. You just got to do it. Yeah.
You have to do it. So, And so ultimately think about what's best for my child in this situation.
Yeah.
Right. But then also, are you honoring your own time, energy? Right. Are you setting yourself up for disaster when they won't go to bed because you sent their most precious toy to dad's house and it got lost in the ether of other, stepchildren's or half siblings bedroom mess. Yeah. Some things you have to let go and then just always just consider what's best for my child in the situation.
Yeah.
If they're begging you, please, 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 can I bring my Pokemon collection to I want to bring it. I want to show my half brother my Pokemon collection. You can have a conversation with your child and be like, listen, are you prepared for this to not come back? I'm not going to buy you a whole new Pokemon card collection. If this goes to your dad's house and it never comes back, then it's just going to be at dad's house forever. Okay. And then I guess you're kind of teaching them life lesson too, if it doesn't come back. Right.
I know a lot of kids also talk to their parents in between visits. It also could be something like if they're really worried about it as another boundary or advocating, like tell dad, or maybe it's mom, that's high conflict, or like just tell them, I really need to bring that back so I can enjoy it here too. Can you help me? And sort of advocating for what they need.
Right.
There.
Right. Keeping things in their backpack too. If you have a child, a school age child that goes back and forth, you could just put it in their backpack, make sure it stays in the backpack. And then, that's as long as the backpack's coming home, hopefully that toy or art project or whatever it is will come home too.
Yeah. I've actually backpack thing. I think that's a bit important because I've noticed some parents, I mean, I've had clients say to me like, well, I'm not responsible for what goes in their backpack. And I'm like, well, I think you are on these transition days because you are responsible for making the transition as easy as possible for your child, at
Right.
least what's in your power. And if
Yeah.
in their backpack and making sure their items are in it. So that way you're not then reaching out to the co-parent saying, you forgot to ask me for this. Like, don't set yourself and your child up for failure. Set them up to succeed and to be happy.
Yes. And I think something too is there's a learning curve. Like, if you're freshly separated, maybe your co-parent doesn't know the brand of tampons your daughter wants to use or her skincare routine, right? So go ahead and make sure she's got her purse with all her personal items that she wants to bring. And then also let him know, hey, these are the brands. And there's a feature in Talking Parents where there's an info library. You can put everything in there from your children's favorite spaghetti sauce to what medications they're on to what brand of shampoo they like or what their sizes are. And that makes it so much easier. So you're not the default parent. They're not always
Right.
or your child doesn't like to go over there because they don't have their favorite things. They eat weird food over at dad's house or mom's house. They don't know what brand of pancake I like to eat. They don't know what spaghetti sauce I eat. Well, guess what? It's our job as co-parents to encourage that relationship with the other parent by supporting that role. Now, we don't have to do everything for them, right? But we can provide all the information and then take hands off. Like, okay, here's everything you need. I'm setting you up for success. Our daughter said that she doesn't like going over to your house because you don't have her favorite cereal. You don't use the laundry detergent over there smells weird. Kids come up with the weirdest things.
Yeah. Oh, mine came up with, I don't like jeans. I don't like jeans and they only have jeans, like pants, jeans. And I was like, well, here. So I just threw a bunch of leggings in there one time and I was like, here you go. You can leave them there. They might never come back.
Yep.
Because I was like, that's easier than sending
my daughter
up pants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
My daughter went through this phase where she had to wear a training bra under every single shirt, but they had to be a specific kind of training bra, right? It had to be a wider strap. It had to have enough coverage. It's a training bra. She doesn't actually need it yet, but it was this phase she was going through. And so you bet your butt. I went to Target and I bought 2 packs, one for me, one for her to put in her backpack just in case, so that she had one for every day she was at dad's until he took initiative and went and bought her bras for his house too. So there is a learning curve. Like, okay, and I'm going to go to my daughter to Target with my daughter and have her pick out the perfect comfy bra. And I'm going to take that effort and do the research and figure out exactly specifically what it is that she wants so that she feels comfortable. And I know he probably won't go to all those steps, right? But then once I get that, okay, this is her favorite brand. This is where I got it. I provide that information and then I never have to do it ever again, right? I already did it. And sure enough, a few weeks later, he went to Target and bought her favorite bras.
Yeah.
So it's just, and then in that situation, that's me going, okay, what does my child need? What do they need to be comfortable? And then, I'm going to communicate it with my co-parent. And then, hopefully they'll take initiative. If they don't, I would have continued to send bras over to his house forever until she's 18.
which I think the theme then is like continuing to take initiative of what you have control over in your world with your kid.
Right.
And giving the tools that like almost like communicating what they need to know, but then kind of releasing responsibility on the rest of it unless your child needs you to do it for something like a bra, like you said, with something like Pokemon cards. It's not like you're not going to email them constantly, say, make sure those cards are in there, but it's more like setting up the expectation with your kid and then really just trying to help them as much as possible to facilitate this idea that the 2 homes are both your homes. And I want you to be comfortable in both homes.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like if a parent doesn't accept that, they will get into trying to control the other parent, trying to manipulate it. Like, you don't send home their hoodie, I'm going to take you to court and make you pay for, and you don't want to ever get to that point. Right. And also you can't control your co-parent no matter what. And a lot of times, and this is another one of these issues, these co-parenting games, is even a good parent will resort to parental ultimatums, right? They'll say, if like, you don't do this, then I'm going to do this. And they're using it to essentially control and manipulate the other parent. Whether it be, sometimes like it seems perfectly reasonable, right? Let's say your co-parent stops paying child support or something. You can't then say, if you don't pay your child support, you can't see your kids, right? That's an ultimatum. You can't do that. Another thing is maybe if you don't do A, B, and C, I'm not going to pay child support this month, right? It's just as bad. You can't do that either. So, but what it's telling you is a co-parent feels like they're at their rope and they can't get what they want any other way. So they're going to give you an ultimatum. And in that situation, you just have to stay calm and understand that you don't have to be controlled by your high conflict co-parent in order to get what you're legally entitled to, right? I had a client who was submitting itemized receipts of everything she spent her money on every month in order to receive child support. And I had to tell her, your child support is court ordered. You do not need to submit these documents to him every month in order to receive it. She's like, well, I have to prove that I'm spending it on this, this, and this. And I said, no, you don't. You went to court, you got your court order, you have a court order child support, period. That's it. That's all you needed to do. Now you're just entitled to it. You should get it. So I think it's important for parents to connect with their truth and understand what rights they're entitled to, and then set a clear boundary, right? So if your co-parent did say, if you don't do this, I'm going to stop paying child support, you could just say, well, that's unfortunate, that you think that you can do that. You can't. And unfortunately, if you do that, I'm just going to take it to court and then have the child support come directly out of your paycheck, right?
Yeah.
And that's when you seek legal support if necessary, but you connect to your truth and understand that you don't have to be controlled and manipulated by your high conflict co-parent, right? And that's not, and then you even if you're in a situation where you think that you can justify it, you really can't. You cannot give those ultimatums. You can't try to control your co-parent.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. What strategies do you have when the other parent is placing blame on you? And this is something that you might be hearing it from the kids of mom or dad said that you are to blame, for the divorce or for the separation, navigating.
So that's a good one.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up. That's another one of these games that these high conflict co-parents play, right? I call it the I wish game. And it's, I wish we could be a family again. But it's your mom's fault we're not together. It's placing blame on one of the parents. And then also it gives the child false hope. Well, maybe if we can get mom on the same board, we can all be a family again. Right.
Yeah.
So this is definitely an issue you have to address with your co-parent. Send them a talking parents message, say like, listen, our child is coming home saying these things and it's not healthy. It's giving them false hope. Please stop doing it. And when you bring it up to your co-parent, we're not expecting them to change. If they're high conflict, they most likely will continue to do it. But you're documenting that it happened, right? So you have to bring it up to them because you're also authenticating evidence for when you end up in court, right? So your child comes home, you're not going to let it go, right? You're going to send them a talking parents message, say our child came home saying this, doing this, whatever. You're reaching out, you're saying, hey, this is what happened. And you're not going to blame them. You're going to be like, did you do this? Did you say this to her? You say, hey, our child came home saying that you wanted to get back together. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Right? So then they're going to respond to it. They're acknowledging, yes, this conversation did happen. And here's how it went. Even if it's their side of the story.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And I told her that you broke our family up and guess what? You just have got the evidence you needed, right?
Yeah.
If it does eventually end up in family court. But as far as navigating that with your child, you're definitely going to acknowledge your child's feelings first and be like, I'm so sorry that this must be confusing, right? Or whatever feeling they're bringing up, you're going to acknowledge it. You're going to validate it. It's okay to feel that way. It's normal. And it's normal to miss us all being together as a family. But I need you to know that this is a permanent decision that both parents made.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not anyone's fault. And now that we're in two homes, we can both be happy, right? Because before we weren't happy, and now we are, and we have this opportunity to be a happy family together again. That looks different because we're not together. So you're going to highlight the positives of it, and then you're just kind of telling them the truth. This is, it's I really like the phrase, "This is no one's fault." When talking about divorce, because if you say to your child, I don't know, I was like this, I was an overly sensitive child, but if you said something to me like, "Oh, don't worry, it's not your fault," and I would think, does that mean there's a possibility it could be my fault? I know that you're saying that it's not, but is it, right? So if you don't introduce that concept that it could possibly be their fault, you don't want to do that. So I like to tell parents to use the phrase, "This is no one's fault. It's an adult decision. It happens sometimes, and it's sad. And I'm sorry it's happening. I'm sorry it's happening to you. But divorce only happens divorce and separation happens between parents. But I will always love you, and I will always be here for you. And if you want to talk about it, we can." Right.
Yeah.
So just kind of when your high conflict co-parent is trying to place blame on you, tell them not the truth. You don't want to tell them the ugly details of whatever happened to split you up, but just a kind of generic, age appropriate version of what happened. Your dad and I, your mom and I learned that we couldn't stay together no matter how we tried. And it's an adult decision and has nothing to do with you. Right. And it's always weird. It's always like if I was like a back seat in the minivan, Mom, you drive.
Yeah.
Navigate where you're going. And it's never an opportune time to talk about, and they bring it up and you're like, what did you just say? Okay, hold on. I need a minute to what am I supposed to say in this situation? Right. They see the most out of left field thing. And then all of a sudden you're expected to be mother of the year, parent of the year, and explain to them with ease why you got divorced. Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, you got to prepare for it, man, because it'll come at the most inopportune time.
Absolutely. And I like what you said too. It's like just having some ideas of what you will say when these things come up. Obviously, like you said, it's going to come in inopportune time. You're going to be thrown off, but at least having this framework of we both love you. The stories may be different, but you are valued and you can talk to me and, I support you is really the foundation of all of it. I did notice that, you reference talking to the other parent. And I think about some of it, like you said, send a message, you document the issue. I think in the beginning, I remember doing that a lot. And as time went on, 7 years, I do it a lot less because I've gotten a lot of the same responses. I'm thinking of a lot of my clients at once as I say this. And I think it's important to share what the child is saying. And what I typically tell people is if we're going to do that, almost don't even expect a response. You're doing it because you want to share what is going on for your child, but don't expect a response back because that also will set you up in a place to not be defensive to whatever response you are going to get. If you're a liar, that's not true. They actually said this and you brought this up to them because you're taught, it's like it goes blame.
Right. And they will.
Yeah.
They will twist it and try to make it, well, maybe it's because you've been talking to them about this, and they'll twist it and try to make it seem like it's your fault when you're just honestly bringing up a concern, but you're kind of just bringing it up to document it. This actually did happen. Right.
Yeah. Is there a threshold that you have in mind of what you would communicate and what you would not? Or maybe how many times a child brings something up?
Yeah. When it's clearly Like, I have things that I know affect the children, right? So I know that asking your child to spy can cause this loyalty bind. I know that it is a detriment to the other parent's relationship with their child.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I would just say, but you wouldn't know that unless you were a co-parenting specialist and you researched it, or a therapist, right?
Yeah.
So I guess if they're exhibiting behavior that could potentially, like coming to you and like crying and saying, why did you break our family apart? That, to me, that's an issue that needs to be taken to a therapist.
Right. Right.
So if it's causing a big feelings or behavioral issues, it needs to be addressed, and you need to take it to a therapist, because you shouldn't have to be dealing with the constant counter parenting, right? Little issues like they left the hoodie over. I would just send them a message and say, hey, next chance you get, we left the purple hoodie over at your house again. Can you please? And if they don't expect them to return it. They won't. They won't go out of their way to even look for it, probably, if they're a high conflict co-parent. But at least you said it, right? And then you could sleep at night knowing that you tried. That was your try. You don't have to over and over and over and over again. But little issues like that, okay to let go. Big issues like your child negotiating with you, that's another thing. If they're asking you questions like, well, if we moved into a bigger house, then could we be a family again? Could we all live together and be a family again? That sounds like that's a fun idea. No, that doesn't work that way. But what that's also telling you is that your child is negotiating with you, which means they think that they are responsible for fixing the problem so that you guys can be back together again. So that is it's the sign of, oh, wait, she feels responsible for fixing, or my child feels like they're responsible for fixing this so we can be a family again. And that's when you need to have a very clear talk with your child about, it's an adult decision. Divorce happens sometime. Nothing you can do, nothing you should be worrying about to try to fix it. It's not going to be fixed. This is something that's a permanent decision, and it's okay. And lots of families are like ours. And that's another reason why I wrote the book, is because I want my children to be able to see it in a book and say, oh, look, Stella has two homes too, right? And that's why there's discussion questions in the back of the book too. Like, do you know other children, that have two homes? My kids go to, in their school, that half of the classroom, the kids have two homes. It's normal here in San Diego.
Yeah.
And I know, like, people say, oh, we don't want to normalize divorce. Well, it's already normalized. It's already a normal thing, because parents are getting divorced. And I don't want my children to feel like they're different, right? I want them to feel like, oh, just like Jessica's parents, they live in two homes too, right? It's a normal thing now. And we're just creating tools and resources to help children cope better.
Yeah.
And
there's not that many tools out there.
So that
like you said.
Yes.
There's not many tools out there.
Yeah.
Is there anything on this that we didn't touch on that you feel like I know we talked about so many of the intricacies of it, that you feel like is important to add? I
would just say, with children, behavior is communication. Right?
Oh yeah.
I would say look at what's going on in their life first. Are they acting out? Are they hitting? Are they biting? Go get help sooner rather than later, because we're not born with these natural ability to decipher what the heck's going on with our kid and how to help them. So do as much research as you can and reach out for help. Get a therapist involved, and they can, get you tools and resources to help your child cope through divorce or separation, or help counteract the counter parenting that's going on possibly at your high conflict co-parent's house. It's really important to be able to identify certain behaviors in your child and see what's causing it and be able to fix it.
Yeah. And just to add to, just looking at the patterns that you notice, like if you're noticing there's patterns around the transitions. It's not always just the other parent. It might be the transition as a whole, any transitions. And so it's like, okay, well, but you're probably managing those transitions on your own in your own home in a different way. And so it's like, okay, well, there's definitely, my kid definitely struggles with transitions. So obviously they're going to struggle with the transitions to and from their other home, but they're also going to struggle in other ways, but you may not be thinking of that because you're already managing that in your own life, as well as, when they have these big emotions, when they have nervous stomachs. And, my daughter recently, like that, we definitely have a pattern where like she doesn't like Wednesdays. And I'm like, it is so funny because she'll be like, oh, it's Wednesday. And I'm like, it's like an adult already. And it's just, she's just like, I don't like Wednesdays. And then she has all these reasons. It's like none of her favorite things are on Wednesdays at school. It's a long day. The kids that actually transition to their other parents' home happens on Wednesday. So I think there's a lot of like this regulation because there's a lot of 2-2-5 schedule in Boston. So I think she's just like, it's probably a lot of energy at school that day, like weird energy that might be there. That's just natural. On top of the fact, there's none of her favorite activities. We don't do any activities on Wednesday, like extracurriculars. It's the middle of the week. And as adults hate Wednesdays too, but I just like, now we like have strategies just for Wednesdays, and it has nothing to do with any transition for her to and from another home. It has everything to do with like, she identified that she has this. So, we think about different things for Wednesdays and like how to make Wednesdays fun just because it's a day. It's funny, but it's like, that's just our plan.
Yep. And for parents who are dealing with big behavior, big emotions, specifically on transition days, that's expected. Like this is a big change, and going from one house to another is like, they didn't ask for this, and so just be patient with them and understand like transition days are hard. For younger kids, my kids, again, I said they were 10 months old and 2 years old when we started going back and forth. I would provide like, bring a comfort animal, or I bring an auntie or their grandma in the car with me to drop off and say goodbye, just to kind of ease that. Okay, it's time to do this, And then when they were coming back, same. I would bring someone like a cousin with me, and I'd be like, look, who's just trying to distract them away from, you're going to be gone from your mom, right?
Right.
When they're coming back, same, like different reasons, but then they're needing to adjust to my house too. So I bring a little snack in the car, just like, oh, look, we tried out these new little gluten-free snacks, and just you can just, when they're little, you can just distract them away from it, kind of like, oh, there's a toy that I picked up at the 99-cent store, and something excited, happy to get you in your car seat. And then we would pick up and drop off at In-N-Out. So when I'd get my kids back, we'd go through In-N-Out, and that would be our dinner that night. And so it was like a routine. And it was something for them to look forward to. And then I'd have to come up with all kinds of stuff, we're all just kind of figuring it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what works and what doesn't with your own child. Right. And what's going to bring them comfort during this transition, during this big change.
Yeah. Yeah. And, one last little bit on that. Like, I was once given the advice for traveling to go to Target and get some of those like $1, coloring books, game stickers, like the stuff that's in like when you first walk in, that's meant to be just thrown out. And I would get those for the plane, and then, or other things that we would do. And then I started to think like, why don't I just get those on the transition days? So that way, when I pick her up, she has a little thing to do. Like she knows it's going to be there. I spent, $1, and and if she doesn't do it, or if she feels car sick and then doesn't look at it, whatever it is, it's like, it's still there. It's still just a comfort thing of like, I can distract a little bit or disassociate.
Yes.
Zone out for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my kids do better with the transitions now that they're not babies, not toddlers. They're 7 and 9, but still there's that period of time when they're getting used to the rules and the expectations at mom's house versus dad's house.
Yeah.
And that, I don't plan things on the nights that my kids come back.
Same.
I'm not going to drag them to a family function or try to go grocery shopping with them when they're trying to adjust from dad's house to mom's house. No, I can't plan. I'm not going to plan stuff. And I'm doing that because I'm holding space for them to have their big emotions, big feelings. And then also just respecting their time. They might be, they have a different sleep schedule at dad's house. They've got siblings at dad's house. And they're just they want to be acclimate like a little goldfish in their bowl, right? You got to acclimate them to their environment first before you let them out of the bag.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, I think that's a really, really, really important point. I don't plan anything either, unless it's like a school event or a birthday party. But then I have to be really conscious of the fact that like she's most likely not going to stay the whole time. Like even this weekend, my daughter was asking me to like go. She wants to go to a carnival tomorrow at her school. They're doing like a spring fair, and you can volunteer. And like I was like, this is a lot, but she loves to feel included. So it's like, okay, we can go. Why don't we go at the beginning?
Yeah.
We'll go at the beginning. We'll volunteer at the beginning because they're half an hour slots, which is good. And then we can enjoy and have fun for an hour. And then I know she's not going to make it much longer. I know the dysregulation.
Right.
And I know her well. So it's like, okay, and then we'll leave, and then we'll sort of come back down. Yeah.
And that's what's great is you're so in tune with your daughter. You could be like, all right, we're just going to go check out the vibe, see what's good. And then if you see her start to, spiral, you could be like, I'm going to bring her home before this gets worse, right?
Yeah. It's like normally we would like walk there or take like the train. And now it's like, we're going to drive and the car will be nearby just in case it's just not, even if she just needs a break. But like you said, like, it's like not having really expectations of what they can do other than that they're reacclimating is what's important. It's just another way that like you're owning your role as this is what, we have two homes and this is what we do.
And this is our normal. And hopefully other people too are aware of that. I think they are becoming more aware. Like my family will say, oh, Sunday, can you come over for dinner? Now they, you get my kids back that day. And like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, but they might not get along with their cousins because they're going to be kind of, probably overtired. I probably need time to give them clip their fingernails and brush the mess out of my daughter's hair and give them showers. Like we need time by ourselves in our house to get back on routine. Right. And so my family it's funny because I've been divorced for 7 years now and it's still, I have to remind them, well,
I have
my kids that night I'm getting my kids back that night. Right.
Yeah, no, I have clients that have the same situation. My family's in another state, but they absolutely. It's like reminding them like, yep, I hear that to you. It appears I'm available, but I am not. Yeah. Like it's not happening.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this. This was so informative. And, our other episodes were very important and they talked about the big topics, but I think that these are the kinds of things that like people ruminate about, they think about, they try and figure out, they're always thinking about. And it's like, I think we probably gave them a lot of tools today that they can implement and they can like reframe if they're thinking about it differently.
Well, I really hope so. And I don't know one parent who doesn't go, oh, great, I'm getting divorced. How do I not screw up the kids? Right.
Yeah.
And so I like to educate on specifically exactly here's how you don't screw up your kids. Right.
Yeah.
Here's what to do. Here's what not to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
How to not screw up your kids.
Please title the episode.
Yeah. As you know, I love having you here. So I'm sure you'll be back and I will share the book in the show notes so that people can go and find it as well as your information. But can you tell us quickly how people can find you?
Sure. My book is called Stella's Two Homes by Tessa, and you can get it on Amazon. And my website, if you'd like to check me out, is kindmamadivorcecoaching.com, or you can find me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. I am at Coach Kind Mama. And thank you so much, Jessica, for having me on again. I just absolutely love speaking on your podcast and just speaking to you in general. It's great.
Yeah. It's like people could probably tell that we are now friends, but we became friends through this. So at least there's that.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. So, well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.